This podcast is sponsored by Podbean. Podbean is the easiest way to create your own podcast. We use Podbean to host S1E1. Download the free Podbean podcast app to start, record, and publish your very own podcast in minutes. Podbean provides everything you need to run your podcast, and you can record and publish episodes directly from the app on your phone. Download the free Podbean app today. That's Podbean. Head on over to Podbean at www.podbean.com and use the code podcast21 for your first 30 days of podcast hosting for free. Check it out.
I don't want to be like not in control in case I wake up when the fuselage is exploding and I don't have like the ability to do something about it.
Damn,
what are you going to do?
I wish Joe was awake.
I was going to say that,
What the hell are you going to do if a fuselage explodes?
Good thing Joe's alert so he can jump out on the wing with some duct tape and get everything done. Welcome everyone to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just its first televised episode, and based on just that episode alone, rate it and decide if it's a show that we want to greenlight or cancel, ignoring anything we might know about the future run of that show. This week we're talking about Mulaney. Mulaney went 13 episodes, having only one season on Fox. Today we're talking about the first episode, which was called Pilot, originally airing October 5th, 2014. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, Ferg, Joe, Gordo, and Nick. What's going on, guys?
Mulaney.
Yo.
This podcast was recorded in front of a live studio audience. Okay. Is anybody else thrown off by that? I was like, is that fucking iced tea?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I want to
it
do the
was
voice
iced
too, but I felt like it'd be in poor taste to do the iced tea voice.
So to start off, Mulaney as a show. Has anyone seen this up until watching it for this episode we're doing now?
No.
Nope.
No.
I never even heard of it.
No, I didn't know it. I don't remember if I knew it existed. I don't think I did. I'm not sure. If I heard it, it was in passing. But now to pivot, John Mulaney, the comedian, who's familiar with him?
Nope.
Yeah, I know
me.
who he is.
Very much so.
He's a very big comedian. I would have thought more of you would be aware of his work.
You know, you guys keep saying that, and
Yeah.
he's not a small comedian by any means, but I don't think he's like upper echelon.
He's pretty known.
I've never heard of him.
He played in Boston last year and did like 10 sold out shows in a row. Like did like a residency here and sold out the Wilbur like 10 nights in a row, and then did like 10 nights in Boston. And him and Nick Kroll did that, or New York rather. Him and Nick Kroll did that like Oh Hello thing on Broadway, and that sold out every night. Like it's a lot of people.
They were probably there for Ruxin.
Well, Ruxin was home alone.
So let's get right into the episode. So the show opens up with John Mulaney just doing some stand-up, which you can't not say this is obviously going to draw comparisons to Seinfeld right away.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But Seinfeld was him doing his act on like a comedy stage. This was just out of nowhere in front of the studio audience for the show. It was strange.
Also, when he's doing that stand-up, is he in Lou Cannon's apartment, the set?
I think he's in the set at the end.
Because it looked like, because you don't realize it until later in the episode when we get into Lou Cannon's office, but it looks like that the beginning like stand-up set is in that set. I don't know. I could be wrong.
I didn't notice. It came off to me not that he was. It looked like he was supposed to be doing a normal comedy set, but maybe just the set looked weird to us. I don't know. But I thought it was supposed to be a comedy show, much like Seinfeld's was. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if maybe he was like a warm-up comedian.
The background had the apartment,
Oh, okay.
furniture and
Yeah,
everything.
I just don't know if it's like a meta thing. Like, is he being himself, John Mulaney, doing stand-up in front of his own TV show before his start? Or is he being John Mulaney, the character John Mulaney?
It's a great
doing stand-up
question.
inside of the world of the TV show. That's what threw me off.
Yeah, and I don't want to do the whole bit.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, I usually am the person who always goes into Seinfeld and everybody yells at me. And I picked this show having never seen it. Then halfway through, I was like, I'm fucking dreading this episode, because how do you not just constantly refer to this as Seinfeld? And all of the critics of this show constantly refer to it. Like everybody, it's so obvious.
Oh, what did they say? Were they like, it's just like Seinfeld, but not funny?
The second
Why
we
is
started
everybody
the
laughing?
show, I cursed Joe. I'm like, why is it every time? Like, every single time Joe picks a show, I'm miserable for 22 minutes straight. Like, it's awful. Stop picking these shows, please.
Well, what I'm guessing is that Nick wants to put a bullet In my head.
You know, to get, I don't want to get too into it right now, but they definitely had very high expectations for the show, and they put a lot of money into it. It was very clear by the sets, the cast that they got. So a lot of effort went into it. All right, just to start off with the stand-up, I don't want to emulate the whole bit he does, but essentially he's just telling a joke about being 30 and women finding him scary now because he's older. And the joke is essentially him just accidentally chasing a woman down the street, thinking that he was running after a train. I don't know. I don't want to. Again, I can't tell the joke, but yeah, it wasn't. To me, it was like, this is your first intro to the show. It's episode 1. I don't know. I'm assuming every episode is going to start off like this. And if this was like your number 1 ace joke, it's not a good start.
No. Also, I don't care how old he is. I don't think anybody would find John Mulaney threatening in any way.
No, he looks like a boy.
He's such a fucking twiggy,
He's not very
dorky looking
threatening.
dude.
I will say though, I mean, I do like John Mulaney's stand-up, and I did like the hook of the end of that, where he's like, "Oh yeah, we're adults, and adults murder each other." That got a laugh out of me.
Yeah, I did like that.
Yeah, I didn't think the joke itself was bad. Just I thought that it went on a little too long for a show intro. And not knowing anything about the show, I don't know if all of these are like one full bit from him.
Right. So so let's get into the intro, because the intro is just some establishing shots of New York, and it all kind of looks like homemade footage the way it's made to shot. It's obviously with professional cameras, but you see a little bit of movement with the screens. It's very simple, just establishing shots and all the names of the actors just kind of being written on in a script over. Not much to it. Some upbeat music with no lyrics.
I do like the names having their own cards though. I feel like we don't see that as much as we used to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we did a podcast intro and it was like Gordo, Berg, you know?
When they were creating the show, right, they had to make the Seinfeld connection, right? Like at a certain point, you have to realize that this is identical to what they tried to, or what they did. At that point, why are you still keeping it in New York City? At least remove yourself from New York City. Go to Los Angeles to make it different.
He even mentioned he's from Chicago.
Yeah,
Right.
like why did you have to be in New York City? I didn't understand that.
I got a SNL vibe from this.
It does have, I mean, Nassim Petrov is in it, so I mean, that might be why.
Yeah, I mean, like there's multiple SNL connections.
No, just the intro. Like it went from Seinfeld to SNL.
But yeah, I
real
do know what you
quick.
mean. I know what you meant.
Oh, with the SNL intro featuring.
Lorne Michaels
Yeah, Lorne Michaels is one of the producers on this.
he's like the last credited person.
Yeah, just the way they cycled through the names and the music was very SNL-like.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what to expect now from this show going into it.
Yeah.
I will say it's a big swing if you're like, I'm going to make a show. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to make a sitcom. And what I'm going to try to do is try to be exactly like the most successful sitcom of all time. Then like, that's a hard thing to like, if you're going to make comparisons to a show that people universally love and has that much, you know, people around it and just history, that's the tough thing to like live up to immediately. Like,
It's a bootleg is what it is.
Yeah.
it is a little bit, it's a Bobo Seinfeld.
Yeah, big time. It's like the Asylum made it.
So yeah, let's get right into the opening. And you know what? Before we even do that, I do want to say this. I think as the episode goes along, it could very easily not look like a Seinfeld clone, but there's a main reason, and I'm going to get into it later. When you really dissect it, it's not that similar, but the opening stand-up and the fact that it's based around John Mulaney is why it's going to get those comparisons. I think the heart of the show is very different.
Is he a writer on the show?
He had
John
to be,
Mulaney?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the main creators, yeah. But yeah, we'll get into that because there's a couple examples of that too. But to start off, actually to end the intro before I'm going ahead, Joe, you said at the top of the episode, you get that like this episode was recorded in front of a live studio audience, and that was definitely Ice-T because
Yeah, for sure.
it had to be. And I missed that. You know, I kind of forgot that shows did that all the time. And this is a true callback to how things were because we're always guessing how many episodes do we debate. Was this a laugh track or was this a studio audience?
I was wondering, is there any legality behind saying it's in front of a studio audience and having it not be in front of a studio audience? Because this was canned laughter.
I don't know. There was a point where I thought the laughter was not, it was at a weird time.
Yeah, and maybe they're recording the laughs from the live studio audience and injecting them into the third take they did. So maybe that's why it sounds
That's
like
got to be
that.
the gimmick.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, you don't get any of the fun. You don't get anybody being like, "Oh shit!" It's always so just like a laugh.
The tell is always on a live studio audience when like someone takes their shirt off and one person gets extra excited. We talked about it way back in our old home improvement episode, but it's like it happens all the time on shows.
Yeah.
Someone takes a shirt off one girl is always way hornier than the rest of the crowd and like just can't get enough.
Or one guy. Tim Allen takes his shirt off. I'm in.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
But yeah, so the show starts,
Whoa.
and now John's in the waiting room of a doctor's office, and he's with his buddy Motif, who's played by Seton Smith. I looked it up. There's nothing I would have known him from before this, and really after. He's done some other things, but I wouldn't say this was meant to be his breakout role.
Yeah, mainly just like a comedian who's done some acting stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. He's a writer, comedian, actor, like kind of a jack of all trades. He does his own stand up though, for sure. But yeah, so this actually goes back to what you were saying a second ago, Nick. The first laugh from the studio audience comes from Motif asking if he can be John's emergency contact.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, did I miss something? Why is that funny?
It's not funny.
I was like, maybe that would be funny if we knew Motif better, right? Like knowing that the two of them, like that's not a good idea or whatever. This
Right.
is literally his first line in the series. And
Exactly.
I don't understand why it was funny. Yeah.
When they film in front of a live studio audience, do they do things out of sync with the episode? Because I would imagine that if
No, they film chronologically.
they do, okay, because
Yeah.
I was going to say, because they're in a doctor's office, and this is the only time that they're in a doctor's office, so I don't know if the sets are dressed in chronological order or not.
And they might have those old school, like we would see
Like 3 panels.
the applause. They might have the applause sign that lights up and stuff like that. So there might be something to kind of cue you, like this is supposed to be funny, give it a laugh. But yeah, I thought that was just a weird point.
No, I think it's a very weird point. It's not funny. It's very weird. No one would laugh in real life at that. But when you're talking about like this is very Seinfeld, not the whole episode is, but this is so much. Like the two of them going over forums and making, why would I make you my emergency contact?
I mean, doesn't the first episode of Seinfeld start that way? It's George and Jerry at the restaurant before it becomes that famous restaurant. And they're having an almost identical discussion.
It's almost the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very similar conversation with two people.
As he's filling out this form, Motif asks, "Oh, if you are putting me as the emergency contact, can you use my website instead of my number?" And I'm like, come on, that was a little much for me.
That was
Yeah.
my first face palm of this show.
That was
which
one of
has
those
many.
like I don't know this character enough yet, and to be honest, I don't like skipping ahead too much, but he's not as that zany of a character that he's that disconnected from the world. So
You know what? I feel like I would have loved Crabman in this role instead. You know what I mean? Like that was what I think what they were going for as far as like dumb, zany, and it just didn't get
that
it.
innocence, like
Yeah, right, yeah.
But yeah, so now as he's filling out the form too, John needs to come up with a reason why he's in the doctor's office to begin with. And he's really there just to get Xanax. He doesn't want to outwardly say that to the doctor because he thinks it's going to come off shady. So instead he just writes down frequent urination. He figures, oh yeah, I'll just say that. And then while I'm in the office, I'll just casually mention at the end, sometimes I get nervous on airplanes.
My question here is, why is the roommate with him at the doctor's office?
Maybe it was his ride or they're bored. I don't know. They live together. So sometimes it's like, I don't think in my past when I had like a roommate, we would ever be like, hey, want to come to the doctor's with me? But sometimes you just jump along for
He
rides.
says, thanks
but-
for coming with me. So like I can excuse that. I can't excuse the next part, but
But if we were all hanging out and you were like, oh, I have to go to the doctor later, we'd be like, oh, okay, like I would go with you to do that. And then we're going to get like lunch after or something. Like you don't necessarily want to be sitting in the doctor's office, but like, I don't know. I'm not going to fight that. Like your friend's going somewhere, you're hanging out, you
Okay,
just go.
all right. I just thought it was weird.
I will say to this though, the first time I ever got Xanax from a doctor, it did have to do with getting frequent urination and having to go on a plane. So this whole thing was like a weird thing for me. So I pee a lot because I drink so much liquid during a day. So I went to my doctor to go through a litany of the issues I have, including that I had to fly and needed Xanax for that. And went to a point where he wanted to test my pee, but it was just so clear that he told me never mind because there was like no way there would be anything in it. And then he told me in his medical opinion he was thinking that my thirst receptors were broken.
This is a front end problem, not the back end. Yeah.
I don't think, yeah. It's like, I think he's fucking with me because I don't think that's like a medical problem. But I've carried that with me for years now. It's like, must be my thirst receptors. They're still broken as I chug 90 loud bottles of water a
well,
day.
you shouldn't have gone to one of those brick and mortar establishments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing with this was too, because like Motif asks him like, why do you need Xanax? He's like, oh, I'm nervous all the time. And I was like, isn't that a legitimate reason to get Xanax then? Like, if you have legit problems with your nerve, you don't have to pretend that you have a pee problem. Like, you could just tell the doctor this.
Out of curiosity, Joe, does Xanax help on a flight?
Yes.
Does it put you to sleep or do you?
One Xanax. No, I don't sleep. I try to get through like a good. I find that you can't drink a lot, and I'm very serious about it. I'm not like, I'm just gonna get drunk and pass out. I give it like an hour and a half, and I have like 1 to 2 whiskeys, and then you kind of just like coast, but you're like in control. I don't want to be like not in control in case I wake up when the fuselage is exploding and I don't have like the ability to do something about it.
Damn,
What are you gonna do?
I wish Joe was
I was
awake
gonna
to
say
fix
that, Gordo.
What the hell are you gonna do if a fuselage
Good
explodes?
thing Joe's alert so he can jump out on the wing with some duct tape and get everything done.
You never know.
something
I'll
on the
never give him
way.
the chance if I'm passed out.
Well, Joe, if you're our only hope of fixing the fuselage on an airplane, I'll just hope that a priest is on board. So that
Yeah,
he
while it's
can,
in the air.
yeah,
He looks out, there's the wings on fire. He looks forward, there's a terrorist. Just like Joe's worst nightmare.
You know it's the way I'm gonna go, and that's the worst thing in the world.
I wish there was a way to have an image of whatever it is that Joe sees in the mirror when like this big action star that he's like, I'll save the plane.
Oh, it's like Rambo
He throws
2.
like the cigarette on the ground, like, don't worry, I got this.
You never know. We could be in a bank or a coffee shop or a plane, and you might need my skills.
He just got the groundskeeper Willy body when he rips off his shirt.
Grease me up, woman.
Also, so what did you guys think about his example of times he gets nervous, the whole bathroom thing he mentions?
I thought it was weird because if he's already getting a prescription, like he already knows what he wants, like Xanax, so he must have been given a prescription in the past. So why even lie about the whole thing?
Because then
right?
you wouldn't have a shitty episode to write about it.
Yeah. But his whole example, he was saying that when he's in the bathroom and in a public bathroom and someone knocks on the door and he just goes like, someone's in here. Someone's in here.
Oh, his voice changes.
He also gets really close to Motif when he's telling the story. And
I
it
wrote
was
that down, too.
uncomfortable. I don't know why he did it.
It's not the only time he does it in the episode either. He has no regard for personal space at all. And it's like not part of the script.
The only thing I could think of is that was a director's, direction saying, move in, get a little closer, get it closer. And he just couldn't figure out what he meant.
Like he was so close that like the vibration from his voice was probably moving this dude's cheek. Like he was like right on top of him.
Well, neither of them are actors, and it's pretty obvious. But probably that he doesn't know where to stand. But they don't have never seen the cue lines and stuff.
Right.
On Friends, they said that in the early days they never quite knew where to stand. They'd miss the X's, all shit like that. So I mean, this is probably his first time on a sitcom or on a TV show.
I mean, yeah, there's probably a little bit of a pass we can give them at times. He's also talking about how he's nervous because later today he has an interview with TV's Lou Cannon. And I think the dialogue between him and Motif here was like really unnatural. And then, cause like Motif at one point goes, that dude is so talented. He's rich. And I'm like, come on, people don't talk like that. Like,
I
this is
actually
ridiculous.
thought that was kind of funny. He's so talented. He's rich.
I didn't think any of the dialogue was natural in the whole episode. So,
No,
I mean, I honestly feel like this needs to be one of our classic The Big Show episodes where I'm like, where you don't need to be going through this show. It's such, or because every time you're just like, what's happening? It's like, I have so many opinions on this that are so wide, like all of the acting choices in this show where, just like, Jesus Christ.
yeah. When they said Luke Cannon, I thought that my brain, maybe it's because it's broken, but I kept thinking that they were going to say Liu Kang, TV's Liu Kang, and all I can picture is like Liu Kang from Mortal Kombat.
That would have been a great
Luke
show.
Cage.
Yeah.
I wish it was Luke Cage.
Okay, so now do we go pitch a Mortal Kombat sitcom? Do we see if we can get the green light on this?
I would greenlight that. Sight
I would.
unseen.
Greenlight him.
Yeah, this is also Motif mentioning for the first time a joke that he's working on, and it's about how there's like women who are like just regular women, and then there's problem bitches. And I bring this up because this is like the theme of the show, because he brings up the problem bitches thing so many times.
It feels like we missed something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It feels like we missed 3 episodes because they go into this like it's already this established thing. It's mentioned 15 times in the episode. It's not funny, and I don't know the ethos of this for it to be funny.
They lean on it.
I thought this was one of the few things that maybe had some decent continuity, actually. They bring it up here. It's an unfinished joke because he says that. He just has the idea of the joke, but he didn't write the joke yet. All he knows is that he wants to say problem bitches, and that's basically it. And then there's where we meet Jane right after that, and she enters the doctor's office just screaming that she's not crazy, and then she hits like the hand sanitizer 20 times, which it's funny because...
I know, retrospectively.
yeah, if someone ran in an office and did that now, you go like, oh, whatever, sanitize. We sanitize all the time now. I guess in 2014, someone hitting that so many times is a little weird.
So I'll accept like him going there with his friend. Why the fuck did she meet them?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what bothered me.
Yeah, this is not a coffee shop.
Yeah,
scenario.
that made no sense. Why would she meet them at the doctor's office? And Jane, by the way, is played by Nasim Pedrad, who was on SNL for a while. She's like an interesting case.
She left.
Done a ton of sitcoms.
She left SNL for this show.
Oh, really?
Big mistake.
Yeah, so she was. We really, because we watch SNL pretty religiously, and she was really funny on that show. And we found out she left to be in a sitcom with John Mulaney. We're like, that makes sense. This show will probably take off and be huge. And then now she's on a TV show on TBS. So I feel like that's not the.
Does she do the show now where she's like a little boy?
Yeah, Chad, I think it's called.
Another failing show.
Hi, I'm Chad.
Maybe we'll do that one day.
I don't think it's a sitcom.
I think it's a sad thing though when you're like, whoa, you're on a TV show. What channel are you on? Like TBS.
Pop TV.
Like 25 years. No, well, Pop TV did Schitt's Creek, so they win. They got
That's
like.
true.
It seemed like it was gonna be bad. I just don't know if anyone's gonna pull TBS out of.
I'll say this: no, if a show is good enough, it transcends. There's a lot of times where like one good show can pull like an obscure network out of like nowhere, and like all of a sudden of this.
Yeah.
And TBS is established.
I still feel like FX would have died if Always Sunny like wasn't their flagship. Like everything else on FX is kind of meh.
No, because they're big on dramas too, like Fargo.
The Practical Jokers is coming off of like Court TV.
Yeah. What is that called?
True
now?
TV?
True TV, yeah.
True TV.
So like if the show's good enough, people will catch on if they, under the right circumstances.
I like Impractical Jokers.
Which I think is the point of, I mean, that's the intent of these networks, right? The network wants the show to produce for them. Like that's the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want it to succeed.
It's like owning a team, like, right? You want the best players on your team because it boosts your team. So, if you sign like star athletes, your team is better as a result. So if you have better shows on your network is looked at better because of the content you have within it.
Yeah.
But yeah, to go back to Jane's character, she's talking about her ex-boyfriend and how him calling her crazy is like super damaging. Like, and that's like for women in general to be called crazy is, a pretty damaging thing. Which there's truth to that. And her example was she's talking about Christian Bale and there's video footage of him, going crazy on a set of a movie. And everyone's like, oh, he's so passionate.
Good for you.
And then there's a rumor that Katherine Heigl is difficult to work with and she's basically done now in the industry. I will say there's more than one little rumor. There's like a lot going behind Katherine Heigl.
Yeah, there's a difference between something happening once in the heat of the moment and consistently being a bitch. So.
Yeah.
Ellen, too, has that same rap, right?
Yeah, Ellen's apparently very awful.
Yeah, she's a terrible human being.
So I'll say this. This was actually...
And she's got a terrible sitcom that I'm sure we'll cover someday.
Oh, yeah. So there's this point here, actually, when Jane enters and Nasim's doing this whole bit. This is what kind of finally put the pin on like what I thought was weird about the show in the first few minutes. And it was that John Mulaney can't act.
Yep.
And that was, I was like, why is this show so weird? And it wasn't just that it was his delivery. It's just, he just can't act because she was like acting circles around him. I think she's very talented personally.
If we're going to compare, I don't think anybody can say that Jerry Seinfeld is a good actor.
No, but he's good at playing that character.
Right. And that's when I think they're trying to get John Mulaney to play somebody else when in reality he should just be playing John Mulaney.
I just think he was uncomfortable. Like he didn't know how to like position himself.
You can tell he's just saying the lines. He's not acting the lines.
Right.
Like, that makes any sense. But like,
there's other points in the episode where he's just as awkward. Like when he's in front of Lou Cannon and when they're at his apartment. Like it's a theme throughout the whole episode. Maybe it's a first episode jitter type deal, but like it definitely comes across.
I guess you have to give that kind of benefit of the doubt.
There were points where I wondered if it was like this like weird meta thing and like he was intentionally being awkward and it was like you were supposed to like accept it for what it was and that was part of the charm of the show. I was like, is this deliberate?
I think one of the big issues for him too, and not to go too far ahead, but everybody but him, and I want to say Martin Short because Martin Short just always plays that way and he's good at it, is everybody in this is too big. Like Jane is crazy and nervous. The other Motif, he's too big. Like everyone's wildly big in this show. And then you've got him, and he seems even more meek, and it doesn't work.
Who's Motif?
His friend?
His best friend.
No, but I don't know who he is.
Oh, I said it at the top.
In real life.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know him from a lot of
Oh,
stuff.
he's just like a comedian writer.
Yeah,
guy.
he didn't have like a lot of credits behind him.
But you want to fix that problem of everyone being too big. You have the comedy at the beginning, and then have the bit being him going into the story. And then he's an unreliable narrator, which could explain why everyone acts that way. But they don't do that because that's good writing.
I mean, even when you see Elliot Gould later on, he's even playing like super crazy character, right? He's playing that so wide.
So I want to go into from there. John's finally sitting like up on the doctor's bed, and he's talking to the doctor, who immediately asks him how many times he's urinating in a day. And John says 11. He thinks he's being pretty smart. He's like, that's a good number to for being a lot of times a day. And the doctor is pretty concerned immediately because John's now trying to go into this. Yeah, so sometimes I get nervous on planes, but like the doctor's like, no, if you're peeing 11 times a day, we need to check your prostate immediately. And he spins him around the table and he gets him down. And he's like, originally just holding his hands on the table to bend over, but he's like, no, elbows down, which gets him like really down in there. He's like, I like the way I was leaning before. It had more dignity, which I did think that was a little bit one of the funnier things he'd said at this point.
I thought the scene was really good, and I do like the writing of the backfire, right? Like, I'm going to go and do this thing. Instead of just saying what I need, he ends up getting a prostate exam, and his whole day is... But they also they ruin it by adding the, like, Chevy Chase Moon River joke when the doctor does the prostate exam, which is, like, just... I was like, don't do it. And, like, of course they did it.
Yeah, as soon as his fingers went in there, you got that loud sound that, like, they cut back to the waiting room and, like, Jane and Motif can hear it from outside the room.
That just seems like such a hack joke. It's done so many times,
Yeah, it was easy. After that scene, it cuts to later in the day, and John's telling the man who works the front desk at Luke Cannon's building about what just happened. Is that, I want to say bellhop, but that's not it, right? Like, what is that title of that job?
It's the front desk.
Doorman.
Yeah, front desk security.
Doorman. Yeah.
But yeah, why would you tell him that?
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
Yep, another thing I did not understand.
He tells him that so that the guy can make the joke.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just so they can have the callback for the joke later.
Because he says, like, you wouldn't understand. He's like, no, I wouldn't. I don't let people put things in me, which I thought was a really good line. And that's the problem too, right? The doorman, the doctor, everybody's acting circles around him. And then these aren't like all big name actors. It's like all these side characters all come off so much more natural. So he looks even more robotic and awkward when he's talking. When all these minor one-line characters are doing so much better than you at the actual acting part of the episode, that's not a good sign.
No, it's not. I mean, and you see that more and more as the episode goes on.
Right.
That like almost everybody is better than him. But like you also said that I've never seen his stand-up, so I don't know if that's kind of the shtick he plays when he's doing stand-up. So maybe it is a joke that I'm not in on.
Right, but whether or not it is, it doesn't translate into the sitcom style.
No, but I feel like if you're a fan of his sitcom and you kind of know that's his sort of brand and his character, you might be more forgiving than I am right now of it.
Right, because I know that John Mulaney's fan base, like a lot of his fan base are very hardcore fans of his, so they would love anything he does regardless, so he's got that going for him, but yeah, here it's just not working out. But we see the apartment with nobody in it, which is Luke Cannon's apartment. It's like this beautiful penthouse, and then there's no one in the room that you can see at first, and then you just hear him shouting from out of your view, and he's announcing himself like it's a late night talk show. And then you see him run out, and he's kind of like starting this little monologue to nobody just within his own apartment. And as that's happening, the elevator opens up because it goes straight into the penthouse, and that's when John enters. Obviously, we have to note Luke Cannon's played by Martin Short, who's a huge get for this show, uber famous. We play the game all the time. I don't even know how I could say where I best know Martin Short from because he's just so big.
Yeah, he's
Three Amigos.
I'd say as a kid, it was probably Three Amigos.
Yeah, Three Amigos. He's also one of those dudes who's like
Jiminy Glick.
I was just gonna say he's one of those guys who always just is Martin Short. I guess Jiminy Glick is kind of the exception, but he's also one of the only people like it doesn't bother me that he's always Martin Short. Like it just always works.
And in this role in particular, this is like a perfect role for him.
Throw me.
Right, yeah. But he's the one person who should be acting this big, and he'd be even funnier by everyone not being so big around him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think even this made him unfunny. Like, I didn't enjoy any of the writing.
I thought he was fine. I think he does a good job with his delivery. But yeah, when Lou finds out that John's there because they have like the interview today, he goes over to like his table where it's one of those like conference call type phones, and he just asks his assistant Donna who this is. And I was like, is this on in his apartment at all times? Like she's just listening to him 24/7, waiting for him to speak.
And Donna is Julia Klausner. She was an SNL writer too. You only hear her voice, but you hear it a bunch of times, and she's actually funny. I think her character is funny in this because it's just this almost like James Bond villain voice in the background all the time. But she's the head writer and creator of Billy on the Street. Speaking of true TV comedies,
and it's like I know we're over analyzing and delving into a lot of these like little minute aspects, especially for a sitcom. But in theory, too, if John Mulaney was interviewing for a job on this show, he would not be interviewing with Lou Cannon. It would be like an executive producer on the show or something. He would not be going to Lou Cannon's house.
Interview like 7 would be with
Maybe.
Lou Cannon.
Like you hear of all these people that were like interns on shows like Conan O'Brien and stuff, and like have these jobs, and it takes them years before they might even meet the guy.
Yeah, I know David Letterman's famous for people had to like avoid him because he would run in the hallways before shows, like for exercise. And people have like, there's all these stories of people like diving out of the way. Like you couldn't say hi to him, you couldn't like interrupt him. It's like weird shit.
Have you seen the cover art for this show? Like what would be on the DVD if you were to buy for some reason the DVD? It's Martin Short, and then behind him, like, is John Mulaney. Like, it's Martin Short peeking in up front.
He's faded on it, and Mulaney's character is clear. So it's made to look like he's trying to overshadow him. So, but yes. And I like that when he calls him John Mulaney. I don't know why.
That was very Martin Short. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's playing Martin Short for sure.
And then he's like, oh, the comedian from the internet, 1,200 views, impressive. And it was like, oh, that's not that. Is that the joke that's not an impressive number?
I mean, I would love 1,200 views on any of our stuff.
And then he asked him, like, did you write all those little mean things underneath too? He's like, no, those are my fans.
I do like the idea though. Like, again, this is where like some of the writing works for me, where it's like, okay, so you're setting up Martin Short and needs somebody who's like different and younger to come in and be like a different voice for writing for him. But he's also so out of touch that he thinks that the views, that's a lot of views, right? Like, he doesn't like get the whole thing, or he doesn't understand how it works. So it actually is the only way that he would ever get a job, because in the real world, with view counts like ours, you don't get hired.
When he's doing like the fake monologue before John even walks in, he's like, oh, good to see all the young people here. Hashtag, because he doesn't know what a hashtag is. Yeah. And then right here's like another another awkward joke. And this was what I can equate this to is there was a lot of jokes that they want to put in the episode, and they have to find setups to just get them in there. So here, for no reason, it's just like, you look disheveled. Oh, that's because I just took the subway. When I got off the subway, there was a wheelchair on its side and there was no one in it. So I assumed something really bad must have happened. But you hope it was a miracle. And I mean, the line was kind of funny.
But that was supposed to be on purpose, though. Because what was he going to say? Like, I just got fucking a finger shoved up my butt.
He wasn't worried about telling it to the other guy.
Yeah, I just told it to the door guy.
He seems to not be bashful about telling the story, so.
But I just thought that whole thing was the wheelchair joke. He was like, that'll be funny to throw in there. How do I get that in there?
Is that one of his jokes?
I don't know.
It has
that
to
I don't
be,
know.
yeah.
I mean, like, that's not from any of his stand-up, I don't think. But I've seen all of his stand-up specials. Again, his stand-up is very good. He's very funny.
I'll take your word for it.
I feel like he's just trying to push jokes in here.
I said, I'll take your word for it.
And then after that, we get back to the John's apartment where Motif's alone at the time. And I wasn't sure of this. I think she is, but does Jane also live there? I wasn't sure.
I couldn't tell.
She's a neighbor, I think.
I wasn't sure if any of them lived there. I know you find out later that like they're roommates, but I didn't know if they were all just hanging.
During the whole can I be your emergency contact? He's like, well, yeah, sure, you're my roommate, so why not?
Oh, okay.
I think, again, very much like a Seinfeld scenario, she is a neighbor of theirs.
Got it.
And like, because she mentions Elliot Gould at one point. She's like the other neighbor across the street. Like, they were across the way. Like, I think they all live in the building.
So yeah, Motif is, he's alone in the house until Jane shows up, and she's carrying a box of things that was like from her exes, but they're like things she stole from him that were like to make him like less of an embarrassing person, as she says. It wasn't like, oh, you left these things in my house. These were things she consciously was taking from him. And there was like a hoodie vest and a statue of Buddha, and she's like, you're from Maryland and you yell at video games. You're not a Buddhist. And Motif tries to retrieve the hoodie vest because he thinks it's actually pretty cool. He's like, oh, that's pretty tight. And then Jane says that she wishes she could remember his password, or I'm sorry, unremember his password so she would stop going through his emails. And Motif offers to change it and not tell her, but Jane makes it known that she would be able to pry it out of him. And then she's like, I'll show you my butt. And he goes, that's the password, which, I mean, that worked for what it was, but
Did it?
well, my thing
I don't think it did.
that was weird to me with that was that wouldn't work. If he changed the password for her and her ex saw his password was changed, he would just change his password because he needs to know his password. It's not like he has email that he can access no matter what the password is. So like he has to be aware of
I
it.
was thinking the same thing. It's a huge logic flaw. If she keeps changing this dude's password, he's going to keep changing it as
Should
well.
have just deleted his email account.
Even if he changes it from Guy Ritchie 5 to Guy Ritchie 6, like she'll probably figure it out.
I also feel like the whole thing was a cop-out. There has to be other ways to promote that a girl is crazy besides reading his emails. That's such an easy thing to do. Like, there had to be another way to do that.
Sounds like something a crazy person would say.
There's nothing wrong with that, right? But I just felt like that was one of those. I think that situation works, but the changing of the password thing just voids all logic. So how do you work with that?
Doesn't
I don't
work.
know. I feel like we're one of our classic overanalyzing scenarios here.
But I'll say this. I actually thought the dialogue between the two of them was really good at the time. Like, take the logic part away, right? I thought there was a smoothness to the two of them going back. And that was another moment as I was watching it for the first time that clicked with me. I was like, oh, this is the first scene John's not in. And this is why the dialogue is going more natural. Because you don't have him to awkward up the fucking interview, or not the interview, but the scene. Like he's so stiff and like uncomfortable that two other people talking without him standing there came off more like a normal sitcom.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, I guess, if you think of all the scenes where he's not. But again, I think he's fine in certain scenes too. I don't know if maybe it's the dynamic. Maybe he wanted these people because like he obviously knows her from working at SNL together, right? It's like maybe it was an issue of wanting people you really like to be on the show, even though you don't necessarily have the chemistry, and then people not saying, hey, that's a bad idea, which could have doomed the whole thing, right? Like if you don't have chemistry with people.
I think everyone's doing a decent job though, and we're saying like from the supporting cast, like the mainstays, to the minor roles like the doorman and the doctor, and he didn't have chemistry with anybody. So at some point you have to be like, it's probably him.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's any. I think he's the detrimental part of this whole thing, and he makes it weird.
Yeah, you suck, John Mulaney.
Jesus. John Mulaney just earned the join the club with Queen Latifah, and
He's at the top of the club. He's the club president.
Wow.
wow,
Impressive.
top of the club.
When he gets out of rehab, he's going to be real pissed.
Yeah.
He's not only a member; he's the president.
So we do cut back to Lou's apartment where it's him and John, and he's like, Lou tells John, I want to give you a little speech, so listen. And the start of it is him talking about, I'm 45 years old, which they really let that laugh drag on. Clearly Martin Short is, at the time of this episode, was in his like early to mid 60s.
Yeah.
So I mean, I get the joke, but they let that joke simmer for a while. They absorbed every bit of that laugh they could get.
They hold a little too long on that, yeah.
But then he tells him, you know,
Can you guys explain his character to me, by the way? Like, is he supposed to be, like, washed up and, like, he's trying, or is it, like, because that's what I thought, and then there was a lot of people at his event, so I'm, like, I got a little confused.
no, I get the vibe that he's
Yeah, I
a
don't think
celebrity.
he's washed up. I think he's still pretty
He's probably
popular.
not at his peak. I don't want to necessarily because he has the talk show and the game show, not quite egregious, but maybe that level of fame
Okay.
where like maybe your peak years are behind you, but you're kind of like forever popular.
Case in point, Steve. Like, think of like a Steve Harvey, like
Yeah.
stand-up comedian,
Okay.
had a great
Yeah.
television show, and now he just does like a game show because he has the notoriety to pull in viewers for a game show because he can throw out a
Yeah.
laugh here and there.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. Good call.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Survey says
Show me dildo.
Show me cancel.
But yeah, to go back to the speech, he tells him he points at all his awards that he has, and he's like, you know, you can be where I am if you're just willing to learn. And John explains that he's been, you know, anxious being comedies almost 30 years old, and he still hasn't had a real job in the industry. And, you know, I'll do an excellent job if you give me the opportunity. Did I say opportunity? I said it weird. Opportunity. I'm sorry. Anyways, Lutz says that level of sincerity will take you exactly to the middle. was actually, I thought that was a pretty good line.
I think he's really good here. The whole thing with the Emmys in the mirror really made me chuckle. Yeah, he's playing the character the way it should be, which is the Martin Short way, I guess.
And I don't want to just keep picking John Mulaney apart, but I have to note it here because I wrote it down when it was happening. During the speech,
He's gonna come looking for you.
During the speech by Lou Cannon, John Mulaney doesn't know where to stand. And he was like standing like very stiff and like he didn't know where to be at all times. And again, this could be being new to the sitcom thing, but it was like very like notable when I was watching. I had a hard time avoiding the fact that he didn't know where to stand.
Like Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands.
I think that has more to do with Martin Short's character than anything like that. I can kind of give him a pass on because Martin Short is acting so eccentric.
He might have been just running around wild and not being on his own cues. That's very possible.
Yeah, and I mean, what are you going to do? Tell Martin Short you can't do X, Y, and Z? Like, so he probably had an idea and then said, no, let me deal with this.
I would have liked this show a lot more if he was, in fact, Jiminy Glick. Like he was going to work for him.
There was at this point too, this is when he gives him the job. He tells him that he's hired, and Donna from over the speakerphone just goes, Mazel tov.
I thought that was funny.
That was all right.
I do like her just being a
listening at all times,
omnipresent voice.
Lou tells John about like this upcoming benefit that he's performing at, and he offers him a chance to open up, and it's for the Marsha Foundation. It's a breast cancer walk that he founded and named after his hairdresser, Marsha, who isn't sick or have breast cancer. He just thought she would get a kick out of it. And I did find that joke funny, but there was also like a point that I was like, ooh, yikes. That's a tough one.
But imagine if that joke was delivered by Jiminy Glick. How much funnier it would be.
She doesn't actually have breast cancer.
The show's already 10 times better.
Like, okay, so we've recasted two of the roles to Steve Harvey and Jiminy Glick. This show's really going in a new direction.
So now after that, later that night, John enters his apartment and tells Motif and Jane that he got the job. Jane mentions that the old man from across the hall came by looking for him. And John says, he has to go there to fill his humidifiers. He has one in the bedroom and one in the living room, and they're really deep, so you have to fill them in the bathtub. And I was like, what the fuck is that? Like, why? Like, what a long, weird explanation.
I don't know if that's a joke. Like, are we swinging for a joke there? But it's not funny. It seems unnecessary. It feels like just filling time.
This was another example, by the way, of John not knowing personal space, because Jane's like on the couch on the end, like leaning towards them, and he walks up so close that like his dick is just like 2 inches from her the whole time. Because he's like just standing over, and I'm like, just take a step back, man. You'll still be in the shot. We film widescreen now.
Well, maybe he's trying to make such an 80s sitcom that he's in his brain filming it in standard def, and he's not doing it in widescreen.
So, and John also asked Motif for a favor. He was supposed to do a spot on this Hudson River cruise boat thing, like in a week, but he can't do it anymore because he's going to be doing that show at Lou. He tells him that it pays $75. Motif's down because it's an opportunity for him to sell those problem bitch t-shirts that he just had made. It's still a joke that he's yet to write, but I couldn't help but think like the show is so obscure now, like already a few years later, that I might buy a problem bitch shirt if I found one on Redbubble or something.
I had a similar thought. I was like, somebody has to have made them, right?
Probably.
Well, Jay, if you ever achieve your dream of being a screen printer, you can whip some up.
I can go for broke, hoping that the 20 people that are diehard Mulaney fans buy my problem bitch t-shirts. Yeah. And then someone knocks at the door, and John looks through the peephole, and he's like, "Bad news, guys, it's Andre." And then Andre enters and goes, "It's Andre." And the first thing that came to my mind in my note that I wrote as I was watching this is, Ferg, how much did you hate this guy the second he came in?
The second he walked in.
That was bad. He was like really, really bad.
Yeah, he's very eccentric.
I mean, he's Newman. Like,
no, he's Kramer.
He is neither.
No, everybody hates him. He's Newman.
Everybody doesn't hate Newman. Only Jerry hates Newman.
Yeah, Newman's still friends. Like,
That's
Kramer
true,
and
yeah,
Newman
yeah.
are friends.
No, he's definitely the crazy zany one out of all of them that comes in.
There are points where we need to stop trying to think everything was directly made to look like Seinfeld.
He's Kramer.
He might not be either of them, but his character is so annoying. He does remind me of other characters on television, and I'm drawing a blank as I say that, but he's very eccentric and out there and super annoying. And he kind of looks like if I was even fatter and a hipster.
He reminds me of the fat redhead from AP Bio.
I still haven't watched that, and I'm sure we'll cover that show on here one day.
But I can't place
He's
him.
not in the latest seasons. He's in the early seasons, and he's just mysteriously gone.
I know
He's
who
the
you
one
mean, yeah.
who he tries to date the mother, and he gets mad about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that kid sucks too.
And again, you find out he's just a weed dealer, and they make it like it's this huge, like, I don't know. I don't personally.
I was wondering that because, well, yeah. So his initial dialogue back and forth with Jane, who clearly does not like him, is like, why is he here? And he's like, oh, I can't just stop by without telling you. And she's like, no, that's not how drug dealers work. And when he asks John what's their problem, he goes, oh, she's just going through a breakup. Also, you're very unpleasant. And that was probably the first John line that like really got me. I really liked that one.
That was a good line, and it's true. But again, that's the writing there is just like make this character somebody genuinely hates, but has like go home heat, so that when somebody makes fun of him, you get a cheap laugh out of it. Like, what are we doing here? But also, don't you know 1,000? I know 50 people who sell weed. You know what I mean? Like,
Really?
why would you surround yourself with somebody? You live in New York City. You can't find somebody to sell you weed who you don't hate.
Right.
You're not trying
Hey,
hard
Joe, you
enough.
want to buy some of this weed right here?
Just down the road, huh?
So yeah, because like Andre, who's like flirting with Jane, explains that he's not going to sell weed forever, that once his grandmother and his parents all die, that he's going to come into quite a bit of money. And I'm thinking 2014 might have been a little different. Less states were legal with marijuana at the time.
Wait, this was in
New York
2014.
just went legal.
2014 wasn't it?
That seems way too far away.
I think it was.
This was October 2014.
It doesn't matter
Yeah.
though, because New York was,
Jeez,
and
where's time go?
New York, I believe I think 2020 they just went legal.
Yeah, I think Massachusetts went legal in like 2016. I think it was only California or
Yeah,
Colorado.
but even when we lived in places where it wasn't legal, that were smaller cities than New York City, we knew like 40 people
Right.
who you would hate less than
Oh,
this
of
guy who
course,
you could
of
have come over
course.
your house.
I would say that, you know, in today's world, if Andre is still selling weed in New York, he might need a second job because it can't be that lucrative these days now that you could buy weed everywhere. But
Or you just exclusively sell to like kids, and that's a weird, sketchier job.
that's a tough business model.
Well, maybe his parents died, and now he has the
Now
money.
he has all that money, yeah.
That's true. We've had a few years here.
Motif suggests that Andre should change the password because she's never going to want to have to initiate conversation with him to get the new one. But again, I'm like, don't go back to that because there wasn't any logic in the password changing thing to begin with.
No,
But
don't double down on it.
I don't think they picked up on that when they wrote it, so they went back to it. And now from there, we cut to Lou's office at the studio, and Lou's sitting at his desk, and John's sitting across from him telling him that he wrote a lot of jokes for him. Lou explains that first it's important that he learns his voice and to know how to write for him, which, I mean, that makes sense. He's like, I'm intelligent, but I can be silly, and he likes a fast delivery with a slow punchline. He does the like, ba 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 ba. Like, that was like his tell jokes that go that way. And then he asks him if he's ever watched his one-man show, Divorce and Other Aphrodisiacs. And when John tells him that he didn't see it, he immediately just starts doing it from the very beginning.
This is another good Martin short joke too, where he's like, I was a prepubescent. It was like 1982 or something, right? He just like keeps throwing out these insanely arbitrary years that make no sense
To
his
make him
age.
younger, yeah. And then we get the 7 hour later screen, and it's him still like finishing up this whole like one-man show. But now it's 3 minutes before he needs to go on air. And he never looked at any of John's jokes. John hands him like the piece of paper, and he just kind of lets the paper go and fall to the ground immediately. He's like, I don't really need you to write jokes. He's like, then what am I doing here? He's like, that's good. I'll use that. What am I doing here?
Everyone loves a catchphrase.
And he's like, we're really vibing. So, we'll just go with that. If it wasn't for me, you'd be bombing on that cruise ship tonight, which cut to Motif on stage doing a little bit of the problem bitch joke, which was a very like typical, if you don't think there's a problem bitch in your group, then you're the problem bitch. And he just kind of stood there, and I couldn't tell. It didn't do enough with the audience sound to know if that was a bomb or if people liked it. Like, it was like, it got some laughs, but it didn't seem like powerful enough, I guess.
They should have just borrowed the fake laugh track from the show for it.
Yeah.
We're like struggling to say things. It's so funny.
After that, we go to the Walk-A-Thon for the Marsha Foundation, and John and Jane are talking backstage, and you can see how much money that they put into this show. Like, and I mean that the sitcom, when you look at like these setups and stages, like everyone there has like the custom Walk-A-Thon shirt on, and I don't know, I just felt like every time you saw a set, there was a lot of like detail put into it. So I think when you look at the cast and all the money that went into these sets, they really, really expected this show to be like a gigantic hit.
Yeah, I thought that they were betting the farm on this, is what it kind of looked like to me. Because like you said, that's what stood out to me the most was the size of the crowd and all of the shirts that they had on.
Yeah, they really put all their money on Santa's Little Helper.
From last week's episode, for those of you who want to listen back. So John asks Jane why she's there because it's obvious not to support him. And Jane's like, no, of course not. He's like, she's like, my ex actually lives on this street, but she wants to show him that she moved on by like just walking by and him seeing that she's part of this walk-a-thon, and says that like, would a woman with nothing going on immerse herself in charity work, which gets the awkward pause.
Yes, it would.
And she then leaves to walk by his window one last time. She's, very obsessed with this guy.
She's definitely crazy.
Yes.
I wonder if later on in the show you see the guy. Like, I wonder if there's ever a payoff. To
Yeah,
this
I was
character or
curious
not.
because you thought you were gonna see him like through the window later, but you didn't get it. And I was like, oh, come on, like,
Yeah.
what does this guy look like?
No, because she got her closure. There'd be no reason to bring him back.
You want to see this guy in like the way that these jokes tell, like he's gonna be like super ugly, like that's how like I picture it. Like you're gonna wonder who she's
He's not
who
a
she's
catch.
obsessing over, and he's gonna be like just a dud, like just no one that you would want to spend that much energy pining after. That's how I picture it, but who knows?
It should be Jiminy Glick.
Oh, hello, Jane.
Hello, ladies.
Do you know how much this show would turn around for all of us if you do see the boyfriend and it's Martin Short as Jiminy Glick? Are you kidding me?
Jane, so good to
There's
see
not enough
you
green
again.
lights in the world for that to happen.
But so while John's standing there, he gets a call from Donna, Lou's assistant, and she tells him Lou has a special announcement he wants him to read when he gets up on stage to read to the crowd to warm them up. And as she's saying that, like this like stagehand just like hands the note to him, and I was like, then why did Donna have to call him? Like, why couldn't the guy with the note just be like, here, Lou wanted you to say this on stage? But I guess I'm at a point where I need to stop trying to find logic in the things happening on the show.
Probably for the best.
So now John, without reading this note, just jumps right up on stage. And he's like, who's ready to laugh? I can't hear you. And he does the, I do like that he acknowledges, like, that's not obviously true, but cheer louder. So that's when John reads the note, and Lou can't be there. And the show's canceled, but for $25, you can take a photo at Lou's cardboard replica. But the crowd's actually still pretty excited.
Yeah, they get pumped.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
stoked on it.
It was like they didn't even feel bad that he's not going to be there. They're so excited to now pay $25 to take a picture with a cardboard cutout.
Why didn't he at least do his
If that was
stand-up?
free, it would be funny, right? I guess if you were like, I don't know, if we were somewhere and just to use Steve Harvey as the example again, right? So it was like, hey, do you want to take a picture with the Steve Harvey cutout? Everybody would take a picture
Right.
with it, right? I don't think anybody would pay
I
for
would
it,
not
though.
pay $25 to take a picture with it.
That's what I'm saying. No one would pay to
Gordo
do it.
might.
No. To be fair,
Gordo might immediately, to be fair.
to be
To be
fair,
fair.
it is
To be fair.
for charity. So if you are
No, the
really,
walk is. The money to that isn't.
but I would assume that the money would also go to charity. So if you did something goofy like that, maybe not $25, but I get them like maybe $5. But you get what I mean, right?
I suppose,
Am the
I suppose.
One that would think that.
Yeah, I could say if they're saying it's an additional charity thing, maybe they can put one in one of the dunk tanks and you can dunk the cardboard.
Well, you can't do that for too long until it just falls apart.
The one lucky person.
But again,
gets
we're trying
do
to
it.
find logic in illogical things, I think. But he then walks backstage again and he asks the guy who handled the note initially, he's like, what the hell just happened? And as that's going on, Jane runs up with like a handful of like these rooted flowers that she pulled out of the ex's window box. And she said that she had planted those last year and he doesn't get to enjoy those with his new girlfriend. And he's like, I thought you wanted closure. He's like, I wanted justice, white boy, which is the second time someone's called white boy, like in, because we got that in Mad About You as well when Helen Hunt called Paul Reiser
Yeah.
white
Yeah.
boy.
But at least in this one, it's
She's not white.
not a white person saying it to another white person. Yeah.
She now sees that he's home and runs off.
Also, in this scene too, he brings down the cardboard
With
cutout
him,
of Martin
yeah.
Short off the stage, behind the stage, where I don't imagine people will be going. You think that if you were doing a photo op, you'd do
Get
it
it
up
on
on
stage,
the
yeah.
stage.
He also has it when he goes home.
Yeah.
Yeah, he takes it home.
So yeah, the stagehand now needs to get that like lapel mic off of him. So reflecting on what just happened up on stage, he's telling the guy that he can't remember the last time he was this humiliated. And then that's when the stagehand like has him bend over and right on his elbows, just like he had to do in the doctor's office. He's like, oh, now I can remember. And that's when you get like Lou's doorman walk out of nowhere eating a snow cone and just like looks at him.
Just shakes his hat at him. I got a laugh out of this.
I liked it. Like I liked the weird look he got, but the setup and the idea that you have to like get on your elbows to take a lapel mic off seemed a little extreme.
Here's my lapel mic.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be.
I put lapel mics on people. You don't take them off like that. You don't do that. You let them do it.
Maybe you've been doing it wrong this whole time.
Yeah, no, you don't. No. I mean, you might unplug the microphone wire, but
It's just a thing on your back, and then a wire that goes around to the front, right?
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like a beeper that has a wired connection.
Yeah.
That you put usually under, because the point is you're supposed to put it under your clothes and pin it to like where your voice emanates from. So
But from there we get back to the apartment and Motif tells John, I'm sorry, what happened. I'm having a rough week too. I sold out of all my problem bitch t-shirts. And that's when he says that, the cruise was pretty successful. He knew his jokes would conquer land, but see?
That was kind of funny. That was funny.
I don't know if that joke was funny. Actually, it was the next joke that he said that I thought was pretty funny. Because he said that the problem is he still doesn't have an end to the problem bitch joke yet. And now it's out there in the zeitgeist. So, now he has limited time to figure out the ending of this joke before it's too late.
But what I don't understand is he's coming back from this charity thing. He comes in with the thing. And wasn't the whole reason he went to he was on the ship was because he couldn't work there?
Yeah, but it was only like a Hudson River cruise. Those are those 3-hour, just go out on the boat real quick. It's not like an actual cruise. He's not going to be gone for days.
3-hour tour.
Yeah, it's like a local booze cruise thing, like one nighter.
Yeah, and that's when Jane runs out with a tablet and she's excited to read another one of her ex's emails titled Bad News. So it reads so Psycho, which she's probably that's me, showed up today and ripped out the flowers she planted. She's like, that I planted, he gave me credit. So she's a complete psycho. And then the new girl writes back and says, he should call the cops. He says, relax. She tells him that he has no balls. And then he writes, do you know what you are? A problem bitch. I almost miss Jane because crazy calms down, but a problem bitch is forever. And that's the time. It's cringy, but I liked that there was closure to the problem bitch joke.
Nobody talks like that.
No, but I feel like the best arc of this entire show is the arc the joke has. The most fulfilling thing that happens in this is the story of the joke, a non-sentient thing. That's a weird thing in a multi-cast, person cast.
Because he's excited. He's like, my joke has an ending. But then she yells I have closure. And it's no, you don't have closure. You're going to read his emails even more now because you're finding trouble in the water there with him and his girls. So now you're waiting for this opening.
Even though, as we've discussed, no one would be in those emails right now.
Yeah.
You also left out how she got the email address.
Well, no, that's next because that's when it was I thought Andre had the password. How did you even read that email? And that's when he comes out of the bedroom or something, goes, he did. And he is it John that just goes yuck? Which again, I don't know. Saying yuck at the response of someone walking out I actually found kind of funny.
These are the moments where he's the best in this. He does little things like that and it is very funny.
That's funny. So apparently Jane begged him and said that she would do anything for it. So he asked to hang out at your apartment. And he has that, I should have asked for more.
I would have respected the show way more if she banged him for it.
Yeah. So the jokes,
Yeah.
I liked his sobering moment where he realized that he could have if he asked, but instead just asked to hang at the apartment because he blank faced oh no, what did I do? But there would have been something funny, I guess, if there was a running joke for future episodes about how she slept with Andre. That would be a funny future runner that they could always go to.
Also would have really dialed in the crazy if she banged him just to get the password.
But you could also do future things too where he's always trying to do things for her and then always fucks up and doesn't ask for the sex too, right? There's a bunch of different ways that could go if the show keeps going. So I kind of like what they did because, I don't know, you can take that in a few different avenues, I guess.
And then Donna calls John and Donna tells him to put me on speakerphone, which I thought was a weird way to address that. He's sorry, I didn't want you on speakerphone. Oh, you want me to put you on speakerphone? Just answer the phone on speakerphone and don't address it, but whatever. And then apparently Lou has another job for him and he goes, oh, what happened? Did Cardboard Lou kill an escort? Which again, stupid, but I found funny.
Yeah.
So I think at this point they actually do have, they have a few hits all coming in towards the end here. I don't know. It's not everything's sequential when the writers are writing everything down, but there are a few jokes that are landing to me at this point. She's oh, I know how you felt, because I was a writer too before I got promoted. So in this world, you start as a writer and then you get promoted to assistant, where you think writing is supposed to be propel you into your own career in entertainment, but that's not quite how it works out here. But then this is what I thought was weird because it cuts to more of John Mulaney doing stand-up at a really awkward time in the episode. You're 3/4 into the episode and now you're going to go back to him doing stand-up.
Yeah, they didn't bookend it.
Seinfeld did do this occasionally.
Only in the first couple of seasons, though. They didn't do that after the first season.
Yeah, but they do it enough that it's a thing they've done.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's another weird copy from Seinfeld that makes no sense.
It doesn't need to be Seinfeld. Yeah, but yeah, I thought it was weird. And then the joke is about how he's straight, but he was definitely gay when he was a young boy, but like not in a sexual way. And he's like kind of like an old gay man, and he was doing an impersonation of just a more flamboyant. I was just kind of thinking of what's his name? It escapes me, on the Birdcage.
Oh, Robin Williams.
Nathan Lane.
Not Nathan Lane.
Okay.
He was doing that. He was like doing like that kind of style. Yeah. But that was like what it was, and it just I don't know. I assume that would have been coming off of a commercial break, but I thought it killed a little bit of the momentum they had right there.
Momentum.
I thought there were a couple jokes that landed in that kitchen scene that they didn't have going for them earlier.
It was an awkward breakup of the show. That would have been better at the end.
Yeah, like close it out.
Yeah, that didn't need to sit, again, not to be like, oh, that's Seinfeld, but it didn't need to serve to be a lead-in to another character.
Right. And then I think that's maybe why they did that, because the next scene you're introduced into, well, they don't address it directly, but I think you're made to believe that Oscar is a gay man.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. And he's an older gay guy, so that's sort of where he was writing. I don't know if he wrote that bit for this or if he just had it and it served the...
Yeah, because that's what it led into. But yeah, so John walks into the hallway, and at the same time, that's when his neighbor Oscar, who's giving his Fern a timeout for being a diva, they meet because they're coming out of their doors at the same time. Oscar, played by Elliot Gould, we talked about that earlier. He's also in a million things, but for me, that's Monica and Ross's dad on Friends.
You know what's weird? I want to say it's MASH, but I immediately go to American History X, and I feel like that's a weird movie to immediately go to.
Yeah.
And he's like, his scenes in it are like rough, you know what I mean? Like, it's not the best movie.
Also, famously married to Barbra Streisand for a while.
Barbra Streisand is one of those people who's had such a weird grouping of like husbands and boyfriends, where she's dated like Chris Christopherson and Gene Simmons and Elliot Gould. What's happening
Making it
here?
through all the old Jews of Hollywood.
I don't know if Christopherson is though.
Yeah, no,
Not a Jewish cowboy.
Gene Simmons for
Gene
sure.
Simmons, Elliot Gould.
For sure,
Yeah.
Gene.
But in any event, Oscar invites him in for tea, and then he's like, "Oh, I pay $80 a month for this apartment. I want people to be able to enjoy it." He's like, "You pay what?" And that's what happens. There's a lot of situations like that in the world where people are under whatever programming and stuff. So you're paying near $2,000. Actually, in New York in 2014, he's probably paying like over $3,000 a month for that apartment.
Oh yeah, but he's got rent control because he's been there so long.
Yeah, I was going to say rent control. I wouldn't call that a program.
Yeah, that's just like you dig in like a tick and you never leave.
Yeah.
No. I took that as rent control, that he'd
Might
just
be.
been there for so
Yeah,
long.
that's what I got from it.
He tells Oscar that he's working for a big comedian now, and he's like, "Do you know Lou Cannon?" He goes, "Is he the one that's Jon Stewart?" I feel like that's like explaining things to your parents. I thought that actually was funny to me.
And he's like pretty spacey hippie guy anyway, so like I think him not knowing something it sort of tracks.
I didn't even pick up on that he was gay at first. I thought he was just eccentric. Like,
Well, they don't address it directly, so like,
it's when he says the fireman line is when I was like, oh, okay.
I kind of got the line when he said his Fern was acting like a diva. Like,
yeah.
like in the way he delivered it.
But yeah, John, especially because it and I think because it came straight off the heels of him doing his stand-up about it being an old gay man. So then when you see that character right after, like, how do you not draw that comparison?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's hard to not to put A to B there.
Yeah. So now John tells Oscar that this job isn't what he wanted it to be, and, it feels pointless. And Oscar tells John the story about his tea tray and how he got it in Turkey during his Wall Street days, which he's like, "Oh, you worked on Wall Street?" He's like, "Yeah, that's where my bike shop was." He went to Turkey for like banana seat covers. He found out that the dealer was a crook, and while he was there, he just happened to find this tea tray in a store. So he'll never regret the trip to Turkey because he found something valuable out of it. And he tells John he just needs to find the tea tray at this job. I actually thought, although the story was weird, but the moral behind it was decent.
Yeah.
The finding the good in the situation.
Always a good moral. I was just going to say, it's always a good moral story. So, to add those little kernels in there.
Yeah. But he's like, what if I can't find the tea tray in this job? He's like, then quit. He's like, but if you do quit, make a scene. He's like, every time I quit a job, they have to call the cops.
But why quit? Like, you're getting paid at least? Stay there till you find something better.
Yeah.
I think he's so eccentric though that he probably quits because
No, I'm just saying for John Mulaney, it's like he's acting it's the worst thing in the world. He's getting paid to hang out.
for John Mulaney, yeah, no, he should stay there because that probably pays way better better than any job he's ever had.
Even if the job's not fulfilling, it's a good one for the resume to be like, oh, I worked for Luke Cannon for like the last 5 years, you know, as his assistant or whatever it was. I was a writer for him. So even if he's not using his jokes, like, who knows that? Like, you just take credit for the good ones.
But also, like, think of the last time you had a really hard day at work and you were like, I'm going to lose my mind. And then someone said, what do you do for a job that's so stressful? And you didn't say, I write jokes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get paid a lot of money to write
I like
jokes.
food.
Like, stop complaining,
I'm the
man.
pillow tester. It's like-
And it's literally like after less than a day, right?
Right.
Like he gives it no chance
Or a
whatsoever.
week. I think it was 1 week at this point.
Yeah, I think it did cut at one point,
Yeah.
but still, either way.
But the next scene is we're back at that studio, but now we're at like the set for the game show that Lou is a host for. And Lou's like, well, John wants to talk. And Lou's like, well, can you just stand there? Because our stand-in isn't there yet. He's running late. So he wants to get some test shots before the show. And John's like, no, I want to have like a serious conversation with you. He's like, yeah, that's fine, but just like stand there. And I think with all the chaos and moving parts of what was going on, he just kind of complied. And Lou's like, I'll just stand here. And he like walks up to the podium. And then all of a sudden, like the lights and the music hits, like the game show is underway because they are doing like their test run.
He's got a very good way of manipulating him, which is
Right.
fun to watch. Like, he is a good manipulator to get anybody to do anything he wants, and no one around him in his circle seems to have any way of saying no, which I think does give you some good comedic situations.
He pays the bills.
And John tells him that he's been there a week and every night he just stays up there till 6 a.m. watching him eat pudding and riff. And he hasn't gotten to do any stand up and he wants to know what's in it for him. And then Lou's response is like, and for the answer, let's go to Dean Cain. And
I got a chuckle out of this.
I did.
Photosynthesis.
Only laugh I got in the whole episode was
yeah,
Dean
because
Cain.
then
I'm like,
Dean
"It's
Cain
Superman."
pops up on the screen. Yeah, and he's just like, and my final answer is photosynthesis or whatever, however he phrased it.
Side note, I love how Dean Cain has made a career out of being Dean Cain. Like after he just became a parody of himself at one point. And I don't hate it. Like it's not a bad thing. It's just he's always just been Dean Cain after like what was that Superman thing?
He did
Yeah.
Lois and Clark, and then he did what was it?
Lois and Clark, yeah.
The Ripley's
Beyond
Believe It or
Belief?
Not.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Yes.
And then ever since then he's just been appearing as himself in a kitchen.
I'm
dinner.
pretty sure that if you look him up, he's done 1 or 2 Hallmark movies.
Definitely.
Oh,
Yep.
for sure. Yeah.
A lot of Christmas shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like he only works like every July to film one Christmas movie.
Yeah.
And he just fulfills his year that way.
God bless.
After the Dean Cain thing happens, because Lou goes, you guessed it, which is the show. John's like, yeah, there's nothing here for me. And he just goes to walk off immediately. And then Lou kind of chases him down. He's like, before you leave, can you just proofread the cue cards? And that's when John sees that he's actually using some of his jokes. So now he's excited. He's like, oh, you're going to be reading my jokes on TV? Which for him was just actual like genuine excitement that his work is being used. But Lou thought that this was just more of a, oh, you want money. So it was like, yeah, hold on. You want to be paid. I get it. So he has them shoot off the money cannon that they use on the show and all this money flies at them.
I like that too.
Yeah, and also the way he says it too, like he's like, Franco, money cannon, one
Yeah.
blast.
Yeah.
And then he picks up $100 bill and he's like, no, not that. He switches that out for a 20. I think like actual jokes being used, that's $100. That's worth $100,
I was
right?
gonna say the going rate for jokes must be really low. $20.
Yeah, $20?
suffice.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming he's on like some sort of a salary as well.
I think
so,
they just used the pay scale for whatever they paid the writers on this show.
yeah.
Yeah.
So so now John agrees to be back tomorrow because he found his tea tray, referencing back to his, conversation with Oscar. And Lou obviously has no idea what that means. And he goes, yes, that is so tea tray. And
That was good.
Martin Short really does save this show.
Lou tells him that the industry has its ups and downs. He's like that problem bitch guy. He's like, one week his joke is sweeping the nation and the next he's our stand-in. And now you see Motif is the stand-in guy that was late. And he's like, hey, Mulaney. He's like, mention me. And that's it. That was how that episode closed out. I thought it was like a decent button, by the way, to close out the episode. It wasn't like an awkward joke. It all full circled at least.
Yeah, I did like that.
I honestly feel like the show builds a little bit, and by the end, you like it a lot more than the beginning. I'm not saying it was like, oh, this is actually a great show, but I do feel like it definitely maybe got some traction.
Its best moments were all definitely in the latter half of the episode for sure.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that has more to do with Elliot Gould and Martin Short.
Mm.
And it's very, very like.
So that's one thing I wanted to touch on once we kind of went through this whole thing, because I had said earlier, the glaring problems to me were like John Mulaney can't act. And I actually think if you took him out, even though it's a show he helped develop and was probably a head writer on and the show is focused around him, if you took the same cast of characters and you sub John Mulaney out with somebody else, I think the show could have been wildly successful. I really thought there was actually enough there to make the show pretty good.
I agree, yeah.
I
Yeah, I agree.
disagree.
Because I felt like a lot of these other characters had chemistry. Andre could fuck himself.
Ferg's argument, the writing still wasn't there. You know what I mean? But it really depends on who that person would be to replace him.
Especially if John Mulaney's like the main voice there. But I just think there's a lot of people that probably would have been charismatic that you could have
What
thrown
if they
into that
replaced
role.
John Mulaney with Jiminy Glick?
I think the entire show is just Jiminy Click.
I'll come back tomorrow. I found my tea tray.
This show did get retooled. This wasn't even its original version on a different network, and then Fox still bought it, which is crazy. So this was an NBC show, and they were like, this isn't very good.
Joe was late on that one. Ferg died again, and it killed me.
Like trying to make like a cogent point, and it couldn't fucking
Because
do it.
I think for like the show to work, and even if you cut out the scenes of him actually doing stand up, like I was trying to think of like what younger like comedians on the scene could kind of work there, right? Because a lot of my favorite comedians are all a little older now too, so like they don't fit into that role either. But I think there's a lot of comedians you could have just shoved right in and it would work more.
I think if you changed it to somebody else who had maybe a little more acting, like you said there, but then you move John Mulaney in just for fun to be the Andre character,
Yeah.
where like he just comes in every once in a while, he makes a couple like funny little
Yeah.
John Mulaney jokes, and he comes back
For sure.
out again. You'd be like, oh, perfect use. That's what I think would have been the better way to do it. Obviously, you know, he wanted to have his own show, and I get
Actually,
that.
like, and we touched on it not long ago, because we did Parks and Rec a few weeks back. I could actually see like an Aziz Ansari doing the main role on there.
I was just literally
Yeah.
thinking Aziz Ansari
But-
or Dimitri
Martin.
Oh yeah,
Martin.
Dimitri Martin.
I could see either of those two people replacing him
Mm.
and it being better.
Yeah. But unfortunately, they went with John Mulaney. So
I was just about to say, like, if I do feel bad going in on John Mulaney this hard, honestly, it's not something that can be easy to do, right? Is that his first acting role, actually? What if it's not? I didn't even bother to look, actually. Because it's so bad, I just assumed that it was his first acting role, but maybe it isn't.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think he was just doing stand-up. He may have popped into an SNL sketch once in a while when he was
he's
writing there,
hosted
but I can't
SNL
remember.
before, hasn't he?
Yeah. But that was like way more recently after all. But then again, you said he's doing a lot of acting.
God,
on
he's been acting since like 2008. He's been in
Kroll Show and stuff. He's always funny.
2004, actually, in the Cavalcade of Personalities.
No, he just sucks.
Yeah. All right, I take it back. He just sucks. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they've all been like shorts. Cavalcade of Personality TV shorts. Mike Birbiglia's
Mike
Secret
Birbiglia
Pub-
is, FYI, a way funnier stand-up comedian than John Mulaney is. Go check out Mike Birbiglia.
Okay, I will. But that looks like that's a special. I love the 30s. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to go through his whole thing. He's done more acting before this than he's done after this. So
But he's good in other stuff too. He's doing sold out shows on Broadway where he's acting. I just think there's something that's a hiccup here. I don't think it's necessarily just him. And I feel I agree with you. Like we shouldn't be just going in on him because I do like him. But
what is he acting in on Broadway?
he did that whole Oh Hello show with Nick Kroll.
Hey,
for
he's
like,
the voice of Peter Porker, the spectacular Spider-Ham in the Spider-Man movie, the Into the Spider-Verse, and he actually does pretty good voice acting in that, so I'll give him credit.
Yeah, I agree.
oh, he's great in Big Mouth.
Joe
too.
makes a good
Doing
point.
voice
This
work.
show makes John Mulaney look worse than he actually is. Like, if you come in this like
Yeah.
not knowing who John Mulaney is, you're never gonna want to see John Mulaney again. When in reality, there is stuff he's in that's not. awful.
Here's what I'll say too. If we were to blame anyone else, and I don't have the credit in front of me, but whoever directed the episode needs to be able to say, this is awkward. You need to deliver it this way. You need like, I don't know how much creative control Mulaney had on the show. I assume quite a bit. But if you had a really good director there that really knew how to get the vibe right and to direct him to like, try it this way, try it that way, try standing here, it could have been a lot better. But maybe whoever was directing the episode was too focused on the directing and not focusing on the performances enough. That could be one part of it. With that in mind, is there anything else you guys want to talk about in regards to John Mulaney himself, anyone else in the cast, the show, or do you think we pretty much covered it at this point?
I do feel very bad that Nassim Pedrad quit SNL to do this show. I mean, like, I know in life you have to take chances sometimes, right? No, they don't always
It seems
work
like a
out.
great opportunity. You're going to be one of the leads on a big Fox show that has a lot of budget behind it, a big cast, a big
Right,
star.
a lot of potential, a lot of
I'm
buzz.
sure she feels worse about it.
I imagine. I mean, if you look now too, right, the cast of SNL, who's been part of that whole cast, most of those people have been on there for years at this point. There's a lot of people from like that generation of SNL people who she could have, I mean, maybe she's happier doing that Chad show. I don't know. We want to speak for her, obviously, but it just seems like a bummer to take that big of a risk and have it blow up so quickly. And this show got like, because I remember what it was on. I never got to watch it. I think it was on Tuesdays, and that was the same night. Whatever night it was on, I had band practice, and that's why I never got to see it because I was never home for it. I was always like, oh, I should check this out. I like everybody in it, and it just.
As an aside, Andy Ackerman directed this, who did almost 90 episodes of Seinfeld. He directed 90 episodes of Seinfeld.
Of course.
Okay, come on.
He also
Why?
did he did 18 episodes of Cheers. He did WKRP in Cincinnati, Perfect Couples, which I'm not really. He did The Connors.
This is quite the pedigree.
Listen,
The episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm about Seinfeld.
Oh, that's a great season. That whole
so listen,
story.
I'm trying to not blame John Mulaney, but we're running out of people that it could be their fault. Like,
Sorry, Johnny.
True.
I guess we got to put this whole thing on the guy who played Andre.
Yeah, fuck you, Andre Van Horn.
Listen, I think we've said a lot. We've tackled this as best we can. There's only one thing left to do, and that's the green light or cancel segment. And I'm not going to assume how any of you are voting. So let's just go around. Ferg, I'm going to start with you.
Well, Joe, you finally done it. This show is worse than Country Comfort. This is the worst show we've covered, period. I hated every second of this show. I laughed because I got excited when I saw Dean Cain, and that was the first joy I got from the second of this fucking show. I cancel it, and I hope it rots in hell.
You're so upset right now.
Joe, going to you, the man who made us watch the show.
Yeah, Ferg, unfortunately, I don't have a rebuttal for you. I'm not going to tell you should give it a better chance or anything. Look, it wasn't good. It should have been good, and that's why I picked it, right? A big sort of show that failed with a lot of big people in it. We know why it failed now. It's not very good. I do like almost everybody on it, but yeah, this is bad. That said, I probably will watch at least the next episode because I'm just so intrigued to see where they take this and to see if it just continues down that path and to see if it gets worse or better because I need to know now. So it's obviously a red light, a cancel for Joe.
Gordo.
Well, I mean, we've gone. This wasn't good. It just wasn't good. Like, it had potential to be good with Martin Short, but this just came off as a bootleg Seinfeld to me, straight down to the director. So, I mean, I know that we've talked about certain, people maybe portraying John Mulaney, but, I got to give it up to Steve Harvey. Please put a bullet in my head. Cancelled.
Nick.
Yeah, what can be said that already hasn't been said? Cancel. This was a bad show. Martin Short is good. Elliot Gould is good. Some of the other cast is great, but you cannot save a sinking ship with just that, I guess. It's bad. Cancel.
Yeah, so I'm not here to do anything different than the rest of you guys this time. It's obviously a cancel for me. The thing that bums me out is, like I said before, I really feel like if you subbed him out with someone else, it could be a decent show. And it's not just to shit on John Mulaney, because he is funny as a stand-up. This just wasn't the right project for him. Something just didn't work. But you know how, like, with Full House, there's a whole version of the pilot episode where someone else played Danny Tanner, and, like, you could find that on the web?
Yeah.
I would love to see a version of this show where just someone else played the main character for the entirety of the episode, where everything was exactly the same except that human being. And I just feel like it would be a show that I actually liked. I felt like so many pieces were there. There was a good cast. There was some good situational stuff in it, but I can't because it starred someone who he came off too awkward and his deliveries were weird. So it's a cancel for me as well. That's a 0 out of 5. That is, shitcom status, as we say here.
What would you say the average of Joe's shows are as far as cancels to green lights?
We can do some math. They're not fantastic.
Are all of the full cancels his shows?
I don't know off the top of my head everything that's a full
No.
cancel.
I would love to. I was thinking like we should penalize him, but I think we should give him an award. Like, that's impressive to find that many bad shows.
Well, since you said it, let me look at it right now. I'll tell you every show that we've given all 5.
Joe has to
canceled.
get a prostate exam now.
Country Comfort, which was a Joe pick.
Joe pick. Yeah.
And then Yes Dear, which was
Yes,
a Joe
Dear.
pick.
Yeah.
That was me.
And then this one. This is only the third time we've given it all 5 cancels. So only 3 actually out of what now is our 38th episode, I believe.
I'd actually be curious more to, how many times have we all canceled except Joe?
So Mama's Family was one of them.
Great
Okay.
show.
We all canceled that except for Joe.
That might be the only time that happened, actually.
Yeah, I don't recall that happening often, actually.
Yeah, I was the odd man out on a couple of shows.
We remember.
there. Joe also canceled Third Rock from the Sun. He was the odd man out on that one. So
Didn't love it. It was no Mama's Family.
everybody loves Raymond.
News Radio.
Come on,
News
Skeeter.
Radio, Joe is the only one who greenlit it.
Yeah, I greenlit News Radio. No one else did.
But yeah, so that's you guys can go through. Actually, if you want to give a better look to everything that we've voted green light versus cancels, go to our Instagram, which is S1E1 Pod, S1E1 Pod on everything actually. So go check that out. So yeah, so to close things up, that's all the time we have for this week, guys. Again, S1E1Pod.com. Like I just said, that's where you can go to find all our social medias, Instagram, Facebook, everything like that. Everywhere you can listen to us, rate, review, subscribe, do all that stuff. Spread the word, let people know about us. We appreciate it very much. But that's it. That's it for this week. Thank you. Goodbye.
I don't think we got the best Mulaney.